Hey, how's it going? My name is Josh, and I've worked in the project economy for over a decade. I've been in the trenches as an individual contributor. I've led teams that's built incredible products, and I've coached businesses and leadership through agile transformations. Today, I want to share with you the 6 things I wish I knew when I first started learning project management. Before we get started, I do want to let you know that this is the first video of a multi-part series. The first destination on the roadmap is all about building your mental tenacity. I'll cover the other roadmap destinations at the end of this video. So let's get started. Here are the 6 things I wish I knew when I first started learning project management. The PMBOK is an incredible reference tool as a project manager, but don't read it cover to cover. It's boring, dry information. I'm sorry, PMI, but it's true. The content, although invaluable, is told out of order from how you would actually use it in a real project. The good news, I got you. I'll walk you through the order of how an actual project unfolds in the next video. So save yourself the frustration and just keep it as a reference tool for later. You need to figure out your learning style because everyone is different. You'll encounter different methods to learning project management, and we'll need to figure out what works best for you. Unfortunately, the new trend is to teach a mindset on how to game the PMP and CAPM exam without actually understanding the material. Please don't take shortcuts. How you do anything is how you do everything. Regardless of why you're learning project management, you will need to put in the work to change your life for the better. Don't cheat your future self. Put in the time, show up each day, and move away from instant gratification. I've worked on numerous raging dumpster fire projects in my lifetime, and it's always shocking when you find out that the project manager is a PMP when they perform so poorly in their role. Please don't be one of those people. Brace yourself because you're going to be drinking from the fire hydrant. There's going to be a tremendous amount of new terms and concepts, especially in the first few months. I remember becoming so frustrated because all of the courses and learning materials I used taught project management from the perspective of the 10 different knowledge areas, and I had no idea what they were, and it was told out of order from how you actually use them in a project. The course instructors kept saying, stay the course, it's going to make sense in 6 weeks. 6 weeks? You've got to be kidding me. I have to feel lost before things start making sense for 6 weeks. I was fit to be tied and frustrated to no end, but I learned a trick along the way. You got to get comfortable with not knowing everything right now. Fake it until you make it if you have to. My commitment to you is that I'll show you how you would apply project management pragmatically in a project from start to finish in another video. Between now and then, here's a trick. Take what you learn each day and figure out how to apply it to tomorrow's problem. You need to start small, then build up from there. It's going to create a muscle memory that will reinforce what you're learning. We are a culmination of everything that has happened to us in life. So exploit that to your advantage. Here's a real-world example. When I first started learning about stakeholder registers, I thought it sounded ridiculously stupid. I mean, picture this. You're going to create a list of people involved in a project that already know each other and that no one is going to reference after it's created. I thought it was a giant waste of time. I now know that that's probably still true for the most part, but where it really shines is when you embed your register into your communication plan. I worked on one project once where the project sponsor was a real persnickety character. I figured out real quick that not all stakeholders are created equal, and all of them have different communication preferences. It initially drove me crazy trying to delight the sponsor, but I realized I wasn't speaking their language. And that's where the stakeholder register mixes well with your communication plan. You can jot down things that reduce your cognitive load, like remembering that everyone on the project team sees email communication as archaic and prefers Slack, but that doesn't matter when communicating to the project sponsor because the project sponsor doesn't even know how to use Slack. Sometimes you just got to roll with the punches. Figure out ways to apply what you're learning to everyday problems you're facing right now. It'll help with your understanding of each individual tool, component, and process along the way. You'll be a better project manager in the long run. Have you ever heard that phrase, you are what you eat? You won't learn new skills if you don't put in the time. That doesn't mean you have to dedicate hours every day. Some days you're only going to have 5 minutes, while others you'll have a couple of hours. The important thing is showing up and nurturing your mind. I didn't have a mentor or anyone I knew that could help guide me through the process. I was lost as all get out and spent a lot of time spinning my wheels. Eventually, I found a community on Reddit while I was studying for my certifications. I was so excited because it was filled with people asking and answering questions. Then I started seeing posts about passing and failing the exams. Imposter syndrome set in hard. Some of these people were failing the PMP with years of experience. How was I going to pass? Then, on the other hand, I would come across these posts where people were bragging about spending less than a week studying and passing. It was the polar opposite. You'd hear them say, the test was easy. They finished a 4-hour exam with an hour and a half to spare. Man, it really got inside my head. What I didn't see was that they had years of experience in the profession. Maybe they were just good test takers. I figured that their memory was better than mine. Perhaps they were born with a silver spoon in their mouth and just didn't have to deal with the stresses of life. I told myself anything that made me feel better about my situation. I was so naive. I didn't realize that social media is fake everywhere you go, including Reddit talking about how you passed a PMP. Now, the worst offender is probably LinkedIn with all its agree posts, but everyone wants the brownie points and their 10 minutes in the spotlight. That's why it's critical to only compare yesterday's you with today's you. You're not in a race, you're in a marathon with yourself, with the goal of learning how to develop value. That's it. That's it. Show up, nurture your mind with however much time you have available, and know it's okay if you have to skip a day or two. But when you show up, you show up. Now, let's talk about how you eat an elephant, because it's one bite at a time. There was a time I almost gave up learning project management because I felt so overwhelmed. I felt like I was going to suffocate, like I had an elephant standing on my chest, and no matter how much I tried, no matter how much effort, regardless of the time spent, I couldn't grasp how to consume all this content. It felt like the book I was reading from was one of those choose your own adventure novels, and no one told me, look in the footnotes to figure out the correct next page. It was a crushing defeat. I was struggling with a wrist injury at the time that was keeping me up at night, and I felt utterly lost trying to learn project management. It broke me. I was fed up, and I put away all the study materials. I closed out the browser tabs. I didn't want to hear another word about project management. I was sick of it. I resigned myself to my situation. And several weeks later, though, I realized, hey, something's got to change. The pain in my wrist was unbearable. I was grumpy and unhappy with where I was at. I made a decision to move from learning project management as optional to non-negotiable. I made a decision that if others had figured out how to learn project management, then so could I. I learned how to eat that elephant, so my optional path became my non-negotiable path. I taught myself project management decomposition. It's a fancy way of saying breaking things down. It's important to understand how to break things down because the journey to learning project management can be intense. I figured out how projects flow in the real world. I broke those pieces down into digestible pieces. That was the secret sauce to learning project management. I just needed some time to cook. Oh, and lastly, it may feel like the finish line is just out of reach as you get knee deep in this process. That's normal. The feeling of getting your sea legs knocked out from underneath you is why it's so important to build your mental tenacity as you continue learning about project management, or honestly, any knowledge skill. I remember feeling like I was going mad when I first started learning Python. I would learn all these foundational building blocks which built upon each other, only to discover that I still hadn't learned enough to solve today's problem. The same thing happened to me while I was learning project management. It's really easy to comprehend at a high level the big steps in a project. It's an entirely different thing to know the nitty-gritty of each situation to be able to be an effective project manager. It wasn't until later I learned about the 90-10 rule. In short, it's the concept that 90% of the work will be completed within 10% of the allotted time, while 10% of the work will consume 90% of the timeline. You know how you can quickly straighten up your house because you have a visitor that's going to drop by in short notice? It doesn't take you long to get your place looking nice enough. The key words here being nice enough. The difference between nice enough and immaculate is a deep cleaning that takes significantly more time. Think spring cleaning versus the text you get from your parents that they're in the area and going to stop by in 30 minutes. That's your 90-10. So let's recap the roadmap on how you start learning project management because it has nothing to do with actually learning project management. PMBOK should be a reference tool, not a study tool. Figure out your learning style. That's really important. Get comfortable with not knowing everything. Be a student. When you show up, you show up. You're in a marathon, not a race. Steaks are delicious, but you'll choke to death if you try to swallow one whole. Learn to break things into smaller, bite-sized chunks. Remember that it takes 10,000 hours to become proficient in a skill. Don't get discouraged because of the 90-10 rule. We all start somewhere. There you have it. Surprise! The first destination on the roadmap to learning project management really has nothing to do with learning project management. Well, technically, breaking things down into smaller bite-sized chunks is project management decomposition, but that's besides the point. The next destination in the roadmap is walking through each process as it appears in an actual ideal project. That means we'll hit every knowledge area and process group as defined by PMI in the order it will actually appear if we were managing a project. Afterward, we'll start deep diving each individual component of every knowledge area and process group to gain a thorough understanding of everything. Then I'll show you how projects actually unfold, as theory is not the same as the real world. I think you'll be surprised at how much often gets cut out. Lastly, we'll introduce other methodologies and frameworks you'll use as a project manager to help round out your knowledge. I would love the opportunity to help guide you through your project management journey. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment and let me know why you're pursuing project management. I appreciate you showing up today. Your future self will thank you. Thanks for watching.